Sometimes, when you sit down at a poker table, it feels like everyone else already knows the secret. There is a quiet pressure in the room. You watch hands unfold and wonder if you are missing something simple, or if the whole game is built on luck and hunches. Old advice and gut feelings mix together, making it hard to tell what is real and what is just habit. Tonight, we will move through some of the most common beliefs that shape how casual players see the game. We will look at why certain ideas feel so true, even when they quietly hold us back. You will hear how confidence grows from strong cards, why folding feels safe, and how bluffing can seem like a test of nerve. We will talk about the comfort of certainty, the fear of big pots, and the way results can cloud judgment. Each idea will be taken apart gently, with time to see what sits underneath. Poker is full of waiting, silence, and long stretches where nothing seems to happen. The real pressure comes not from big moments, but from the steady weight of uncertainty and the slow passing of hands. There is no need to hurry here. The pace will remain calm. There will be no sudden changes in sound or mood. For now, you can let time settle and let each thought arrive quietly, one after another. Chapter 1. You can only win with good cards. Sitting down at the table, you might notice how quickly your mindset shifts when you look down and see a pair of aces or kings. When you hold a strong starting hand, the whole decision structure of the hand seems to change. Suddenly, it feels as if the game is giving you a green light. You feel ready. The tension drops. The urge to play is almost automatic. This reaction is not unique to you. Most players, whether new or experienced, feel a powerful sense of permission when dealt premium cards. There are only 6 ways to be dealt a specific pocket pair like aces, so these hands feel rare and precious. When they arrive, it is natural to believe that you are supposed to win, and that anything less is unfair. If you notice a little frustration or disappointment when the board does not cooperate, or when an opponent shows up with something better, you are not alone. This is one of the most common emotional patterns in the game. Good cards make decisions feel easier. The fear of making a mistake fades into the background. You may find yourself acting quickly, trusting that the strength of your hand will carry you forward. This sense of entitlement is not a weakness. It is a response to visible strength. The problem is not the feeling itself, but the way it can lead to overconfidence and missed signals from the table. Even with the best cards, the situation at the table still matters more. The value of a strong hand depends on how you play it, not just the cards themselves. Inexperienced players sometimes treat big hands as guarantees, but every hand is just another opportunity, not a promise. Strong starting hands still require care. Overconfidence can make your play predictable, or even reckless. Here is an example that might feel familiar. Imagine you are sitting with around $300 in front of you, and you pick up ace of spades and king of spades in the cutoff. A player in middle position, who tends to play a value-heavy range, raises to $12. You re-raise to $36, and they call. The pot is now $75. The flop comes 9 of clubs, 7 of diamonds, 2 of hearts. You have ace high. Your opponent checks. You bet $50. They call. The turn is the 4 of spades. You are still holding ace high. Your opponent checks again. You bet $100. They call. The river is the 8 of clubs. Once more, you have ace high. Your opponent checks. You shove all in for $114. They call. At showdown, your opponent reveals a pair of queens and wins the pot. The early decisions here are understandable. Re-raising with ace-king suited is standard. Betting the flop with ace-high is aggressive but not unreasonable. What happens next is more subtle. As each street passes and your hand fails to improve, the attachment to your original hand strength grows. You keep betting, hoping that the initial promise of your cards will be enough. By the river, the board has offered no help, but the belief in your hand's entitlement to win overrides caution. This is how strong cards can lead you into costly situations, if you let your emotions drive your decisions. Now consider how much of poker actually happens outside of these big hands. Most of the time you are dealt ordinary cards. They do not inspire excitement or confidence. They rarely make you feel like you are in control. Yet these hands are where much of your long-term profit can be found. The game is full of small, quiet moments where the right decision does not depend on strength but on timing and awareness. Imagine you are in the small blind with 7 of clubs and 5 of spades. Everyone folds to the button, who is known for raising with a wide and aggressive range. They make it $10. You call. The big blind folds, leaving just the 2 of you, with $24 in the pot. The flop comes queen of diamonds, 9 of spades, 3 of clubs. You have 7 high with a backdoor straight draw. You check. The button checks behind. The turn is the 2 of spades. You are still holding 7 high. You bet $12. The button folds. You win the pot without a showdown. This is not a dramatic moment. There is no strong hand, no big confrontation. What matters is the recognition that the button's range is weak, and that a small bet can end the hand. You did not need premium cards to find a profitable spot. You needed patience and observation. You preserved your stack and picked up a pot simply by noticing when your opponent was likely to fold. These moments are easy to overlook, but they add up over time. When you rely only on strong hands, you spend most of your session waiting and hoping. When you learn to spot small edges, you become an active participant in your own results. As you play, it helps to remember that the quality of your decisions matters more than the quality of your cards. Poker rewards the player who stays calm, who lets go of attachment to outcomes, and who focuses on process. The best players do not measure themselves by individual pots or lucky runs. They judge their success by the consistency of their choices. Picture a hand where you are on the button, with Jack of spades and 9 of spades. A player in the hijack raises to $12. You call. The blinds fold. The pot is $30. The flop comes king of clubs, 8 of diamonds, 4 of spades. You have jack high with a gut shot straight draw. The hijack bets $15. You call. The turn is the 2 of hearts. Your hand does not improve. The hijack bets $30. You fold. The hijack takes the pot. There is nothing flashy here. The important part is your willingness to let go. You recognize that the turn did not help you, and that the price to continue was not justified. By folding, you kept your losses small and preserved your stack for better opportunities. This is how good decisions, not just strong cards, drive long-term results. Take a breath and give yourself credit for patience. The game is not about waiting for the perfect hand, but about making the best out of every situation. When you can separate your sense of success from the cards you are dealt, you become a steadier, more resilient player. This mindset is the foundation for everything that comes next. Let your focus settle on the process, not the outcome, and you will find more control than you expect. Chapter 2. Playing tight is always safe. When you decide to let go of a hand before the flop, your decisions become much simpler and less stressful. You avoid the tangled webs of tough post-flop spots, where uncertainty can grow quickly and mistakes can feel costly. With each fold, you sidestep those moments of doubt and pressure that so often make poker feel overwhelming. Many players find real comfort in this because it feels like you are protecting yourself from the unknown. Choosing to wait for only the strongest starting hands gives you a sense of control over your session. When you fold everything but pocket pairs, strong Broadway cards, or suited aces, you are rarely caught in difficult spots. The hands you do play are more likely to dominate your opponent's range, which feels responsible and mature. There is a kind of discipline in this approach that many people admire. You are not chasing every pot or hoping to get lucky. Instead, you are trying to make sure that when your chips go in, you are ahead. This style also helps you manage the mental load of poker. By folding early and often, you avoid the need to puzzle through complicated boards or make big river calls with uncertain hands. The game feels more manageable, and each decision is less likely to keep you up at night. It is easy to see why folding often and playing tight can feel like the safest and most sensible path. Let us look at a hand that captures this feeling. In a cash game with $300 stacks, the player in the cutoff seat raises to $10. You are on the button with the Queen of Clubs and 9 of Clubs. Instead of playing, you fold. The blinds also fold, and the cutoff collects a small pot, uncontested. In this spot, folding feels cautious and responsible. You avoid any risk or discomfort, and you do not have to navigate a wide range of possible flops. Even though you had position and a hand that could have played well, the urge to avoid trouble won out. It is a pattern that brings relief, but it is not always without cost. Over time, folding too frequently can quietly erode your chances for growth and profit. There are many hands in poker that are neither strong favorites nor clear folds, but they carry hidden potential when played in the right situations. By passing on these hands, you remove yourself from the small battles that make up so much of a winning player's edge. It is easy to underestimate how much is given up when you let these opportunities slip by. One important detail is that you will only be dealt a pocket pair pre-flop about 6% of the time. If you wait solely for these and a handful of other premium hands, you will spend most of your session on the sidelines. Meanwhile, observant opponents will notice your caution. They may start raising more often before the flop, knowing you are unlikely to fight back with anything less than the best. This can turn you into a target, with your blinds and antes being picked off by players who sense your predictability. The real loss, though, lies in the pots you never contest. When you fold hands that could have been played profitably, especially in position or against weaker opponents, you miss the chance to win small pots that add up over time. These are not dramatic mistakes. They are quiet ones. You might watch the hand unfold and realize, after the fact, that there was little risk and a real shot at a simple win. Consider another hand from a cash game with $300 stacks. It folds to you on the button, and you look down at the King of Diamonds and 7 of Spades. Rather than raise, you fold. The blinds go heads up, and you notice they are both playing passively. It is only after the hand ends that you realize you could have raised and likely won the pot without a fight. There was nothing flashy about the hand, but there was a clear moment to act that went unnoticed. That is how the cost of excessive caution sneaks in. It is not about losing big pots, but about failing to collect the easy ones. Finding your way forward does not mean abandoning discipline or throwing caution aside. It is about noticing when the situation favors you and knowing that action can be measured and thoughtful. You do not need to play every hand or chase every opportunity. Instead, the goal is to join the fray when the timing is right, using your awareness of position and opponent tendencies to your advantage. Let us walk through a hand that shows this balance. In a cash game with $300 stacks, it folds to you in the cutoff with the ace of clubs and 8 of diamonds. You raise to $10. The blinds fold to the big blind, who calls. The pot is now $21. On a flop of 6 of spades, 4 of clubs, and 2 of hearts, the big blind checks. You have ace high, which is not a made hand, but you sense this board is not likely to have helped your opponent. You bet $8, and the big blind folds. You collect a small but uncontested pot. Here, your decision to participate was not reckless. It was a product of patience and observation. You kept your stack safe, but you also allowed yourself a chance to win. Progress at the table comes from balancing caution with opportunity. It is not about chasing every hand or clinging to safety at all costs. It is about learning to recognize when the moment is right, to step in, and when it is best to wait. Over time, this approach helps you grow as a player, letting you build confidence while still honoring your sense of control. Take your time with each decision and let this sense of balance settle in before you act again. Chapter 3. Bluffing is about lying. When you decide whether to bet or check, the possibility of betting with a weak hand changes how your opponents interpret your actions. Many poker players feel uneasy about this. It is common to worry that bluffing is dishonest, or that it breaks some deeper rule of fairness. If you have ever hesitated to pull the trigger on a bluff, you are not alone. Most people bring social habits to the table, and in daily life, lying feels wrong. Bluffing in poker can trigger those same reactions: guilt, anxiety, or even embarrassment, especially when you worry about being caught. These feelings are perfectly normal. They do not mean you are unskilled or lacking in character. Poker has its own set of rules, and everyone at the table understands that bluffing is allowed and expected. There is no secret code of honesty being violated. Instead, bluffing serves a specific purpose. It gives you a chance to win pots, even when you do not hold the best cards. Every player knows this, and the mutual understanding makes bluffing part of the game, not a personal failing. Still, the fear of being exposed can be powerful. Some players avoid bluffing altogether, worried that they will be judged or remembered for their attempt. This often leads to hesitation or passivity, and it can make your play very predictable. When you never bluff, opponents quickly realize that your bets represent only strong hands. This makes you easy to play against, and you miss opportunities to win pots that could be yours. Even experienced players sometimes feel a twinge of discomfort before bluffing. The difference is that they recognize these feelings for what they are, a reaction to the unusual context of poker, not a sign of moral weakness. The more you accept bluffing as routine, the less power those emotions hold over you. Consider a hand played with $300 stacks in a cash game. The player in middle position raises, and you call from the button with Queen of clubs and Jack of clubs. The blinds fold, and you go to the flop heads up. The board comes 7 of diamonds, 5 of spades, and 2 of spades. Your opponent bets, and you call with only queen high and no draw. The turn brings the four of hearts. This time, your opponent checks, and you check behind. The river is the three of clubs. Your opponent checks again, and you check back. At showdown, your opponent reveals a pair of nines and wins the pot. In this hand, your pre-flop call is reasonable. But on the flop, calling with just queen high and no draw is passive, and does not challenge your opponent's range. On both the turn and river, checking shows a reluctance to bluff. Your range becomes transparent, and your play is easy to navigate. By never considering a bluff, you miss a chance to win the pot against a weak hand. The most important mistake is failing to see that a well-timed bluff could have pressured your opponent to fold. Letting discomfort block your options can limit your growth and results. Every time you bet or raise, you are telling a story about the hand you might have. In poker, representing strength means choosing actions that match what you would do with a strong hand, regardless of your actual cards. Bluffing is not about tricking or outsmarting anyone. It is about matching your betting patterns to the story you want to tell. When you bluff, the goal is not to create an elaborate ruse. Consistency is what matters. If your bets look the same when you have a strong hand or a weak one, opponents cannot easily read you. Experienced players use the same timing and sizing for both value bets and bluffs. This makes their bluffs believable and keeps opponents guessing. Small, believable bluffs are often more effective than big, dramatic ones. If you bet in a way that fits what you could realistically have, your story holds up. Consistency in your actions reduces the emotional weight of bluffing. It becomes a routine part of decision-making, not a leap into the unknown. Imagine a cash game with $300 stacks. The cutoff raises, and you call from the small blind with 8 of spades and 7 of spades. The flop is king of diamonds, 6 of clubs, and 2 of spades. You check, and your opponent checks behind. The turn is the 4 of clubs. This time, you bet a small amount. Your opponent folds, and you win the pot. In this spot, your pre-flop call is standard. On the flop, you have only a weak draw, so checking makes sense. The turn bet is a restrained bluff that fits the story of having a king or a medium-strength hand. Your actions are consistent and believable, so your opponent folds. The bluff works not because it is flashy, but because it is credible and routine. Bluffing does not require bravado. It is not about proving yourself or seeking attention. The best bluffs are calm and technical, made as part of a disciplined process. When you separate your ego from the outcome, you gain clarity and stability. Whether a bluff succeeds or fails, it is just one decision in a long series. Patience and observation matter more than boldness. Good bluffing comes from recognizing when the situation is right, based on the board and your opponent's tendencies. Timing and context guide your decision, not the urge to make a splash. When you view bluffing as a technical tool, you are free to make the right play without emotional baggage. Picture a tournament hand, with 40 big blinds effective. The player in the hijack opens, and you call from the cutoff with ace of spades and 5 of spades. The flop is queen of clubs, 8 of diamonds, and 3 of spades. Your opponent bets, and you raise as a bluff. Your sizing is measured, and your demeanor is steady. Your opponent folds, and you collect the pot. Here, your pre-flop call is solid. On the flop, you identify a spot to bluff raise with no made hand. The raise applies pressure without overcommitting. What matters most is your ability to execute the play without ego accepting whatever result comes. This composure is the foundation for long-term growth. As you become more comfortable with bluffing, you will notice the tension fade. Each bluff becomes just another part of the game's rhythm. The table quiets down, and your decisions feel lighter, guided by process rather than worry. Over time, bluffing blends into your routine, and the emotional weight melts away. Chapter 4. More information always helps. When decisions must be made quickly and under pressure, the mind naturally searches for certainty. Poker players often find themselves wanting every detail before acting, especially when the stakes feel high or the situation is unfamiliar. This urge to gather more and more information can seem like a path to better decisions. For many, it feels safer to wait, to look for another clue, or to watch for a sign that will make the choice obvious. The comfort of certainty is tempting, but poker never offers complete knowledge. Some facts are always hidden. This desire for more data leads to hesitation. Players pause, looking for patterns or signals that might not exist. As the search for certainty stretches on, the moment to act can slip away. The risk is that hesitation becomes routine. Instead of making a move, players wait, hoping for perfect clarity that does not come. In poker, the game moves on, whether or not you are ready. It is normal to feel uncomfortable with uncertainty. The human mind is wired to seek patterns and explanations, especially when money is on the line. However, poker is built on incomplete information. No one at the table can see all the cards or know every possibility. Accepting this discomfort is part of playing well. Acting with partial information is not a flaw. It is simply the nature of the game. Let us look at a hand that captures this struggle. The stacks are $200 deep in a 1-3 cash game. The cutoff, a wide and aggressive player, raises to $10. The action folds to the big blind, holding ace of clubs and 9 of spades, who calls. The pot is now $22. On the flop, the board comes 9 of diamonds, 6 of clubs, 2 of spades. The big blind has made top pair. They check, and the cutoff bets $15. Instead of acting, the big blind sits in silence, thinking through every possible factor. Over a minute passes before they call. The pot is now $52. The turn brings the 7 of hearts. The hand is unchanged, still top pair. The big blind checks again. The cutoff bets $30. The big blind hesitates, lost in thought, then folds. The cutoff wins the pot. In this hand, the big blind's strength was clear. Top pair with an ace kicker is a solid holding against a wide and aggressive range. The stack sizes and pot odds supported a call or even a raise. However, the desire for certainty led to hesitation, giving up control, and missing a profitable decision. The search for more information did not lead to clarity. Instead, it created doubt and inaction. The discomfort of uncertainty proved costly. When too many details are considered at once, decision-making slows down. Poker players sometimes try to account for every minor betting pattern, each stack size, and all possible card combinations. This overload creates anxiety and clouds judgment. Not every detail deserves equal weight. Some information is simply noise. The mind can only hold so much at once. When it tries to process every variable, decision quality drops. The moment to act may pass, and the opportunity is lost. This is called analysis paralysis. The goal is not to ignore information, but to filter out what does not matter. Focusing on a few key factors leads to more confident and timely plays. Position, bet size, and board texture matter much more than distant memories of an opponent's play from an hour ago. Top players are not immune to uncertainty, but they learn to trust the information that is most actionable. They do not get bogged down in distractions. Here is an example of this approach. The stacks are $150 deep in a 1-3 cash game. The button, playing a wide and aggressive style, raises to $9. The small blind calls with King of Spades and 8 of Spades. The big blind folds, and the pot is now $21. The flop comes 8 of clubs, 4 of diamonds, 2 of spades. The small blind has top pair. They check, and the button bets $12. The small blind calls, keeping the decision simple. The pot is now $45. On the turn, the Queen of Hearts falls. The small blind checks again. The button checks behind. The pot remains at $45. The river brings the 3 of clubs. The small blind bets $15. The button folds, and the small blind wins the pot. In this hand, the small blind filtered out unnecessary details. They focused on position, board texture, and bet sizing. By acting on clear, simple information, they made a confident call and a straightforward value bet. The result was a smooth, profitable line, free from hesitation. Timely action is often more valuable than exhaustive analysis. Poker rewards those who can act with clarity, even in the face of uncertainty. When you trust your read and make a decision, you keep control of the hand. Second guessing slows you down and can lead to missed opportunities. Sometimes the best play is to trust a strong but simple signal. There is no need to wait for every possible detail to line up. Emotional balance matters too. Accepting that you will not always know the outcome, win or lose, takes pressure off each decision. Each hand becomes a moment to learn, not a test of perfection. Let us revisit this mindset in a tournament setting. The stacks are 30 big blinds, effective. In middle position, a player opens to 2.2 big blinds. It folds to the button, who holds 10 of hearts and 9 of hearts. The button calls. Both blinds fold, and the pot is now 6.4 big blinds. The flop comes Jack of Spades, 8 of clubs, 4 of hearts. The button has an open-ended straight draw. Middle position bets 3 big blinds. The button calls, seeing strong equity and clear pot odds. The pot is now 12.4 big blinds. The turn is the 2 of diamonds. The draw remains open-ended. Middle position checks. The button bets 5 big blinds. Middle position folds. The button wins the pot. Here, the button acted promptly on a clear draw and took initiative with a timely semi-bluff. There was no waiting for perfect certainty, only trust in the strength of the situation. The hand shows the value of composure and decisive action. Each time you sit at the table, remember that clarity comes from focus, not from gathering every possible detail. Embrace the discomfort of not knowing, and let your decisions be guided by what matters most. The game moves at its own pace. Your confidence will grow as you learn to act with purpose, even when the answer is not complete. Chapter 5. Big pots mean big mistakes. When the pot grows far larger than what you usually see at the table, the entire decision process changes shape. Every action feels heavier. Each chip you put in seems to matter more. The pressure is not just mental. You can actually feel your heart rate climb and your muscles tighten. This is not a sign of weakness or inexperience. It happens to almost everyone, no matter how many years they have played. The real difference is that some players learn to notice these feelings without letting them take over. Watching a pile of chips build in the center of the table is enough to trigger loss aversion in almost anyone. The pain of possibly losing what you have already committed is much sharper than the joy of what you might win. Your mind starts to race. It becomes easy to focus on the money at risk instead of the cards, the positions, or the logic behind your next move. That is when mistakes become more likely, not because the pot is big, but because your body and mind are reacting to the size of the moment. You might notice that hands with big pots stick in your memory. You replay them much more often than small routine hands. That is a normal effect of emotional intensity. The danger is that you start to believe big pots are more common than they really are. This distorts how you see your own play and the game itself. The fear and tension you feel are simply signals that the stakes are high. They do not mean you are playing badly or that you should back away. Instead, they are a cue to slow down and separate what you are feeling from what you are actually doing at the table. Let's look at how this plays out in a real hand. Both players have $300 in front of them. The player in middle position opens with a raise. You are in the cutoff with ace of spades and king of clubs. You re-raise, and your opponent call. The pot is already $75 before the flop. The flop comes 9 of clubs, 7 of spades, 2 of diamonds. Your opponent checks. You bet $40. They call. Now the pot is $155. The turn brings the 4 of hearts. You still have only ace high. Your opponent checks again. You bet $60. They call. The pot is now $275. The river is the 8 of spades. Your opponent checks. You check behind. At showdown, your opponent shows 2 queens and wins. This is a big pot. Your decisions at every stage show composure. You re-raised pre-flop with a premium hand. You continued on the flop with 2 overcards and the initiative. On the turn, you kept up the pressure, but recognized there was no improvement and slowed down on the river. You did not let the size of the pot push you into panicking or overreaching. The loss feels sharp, but the process was solid. The most important thing is that you played the hand without letting anxiety dictate your choices. Losing a big pot is not the same as making a mistake. After a big pot is over, it is easy to let disappointment cloud your thinking. The sting of a big loss can make you want to go back and find fault in every decision, even when they were correct. This is where the real danger lies. If you start equating every loss with a mistake, your confidence will suffer, and your memory will play tricks on you. You might start to change your game in ways that are not actually logical, just to avoid the pain of another big loss. The key is to separate how you feel about the outcome from how well you actually played the hand. Decision quality in poker comes from using the information you have, knowing the probabilities, and sticking to a logical process. Pot odds tell you what price you are getting to call, and equity is your share of the pot over the long run. These are not changed by how much is in the middle. Your emotions might flare up, but the right call or fold is the same as it would be in a smaller pot. Think about this next hand. Both players have $300. The button opens for $10. You are in the small blind with Jack of Spades and Jack of Diamonds. You re-raise to $35. The button calls. The flop is 8 of diamonds, 5 of clubs, 2 of spades. You have an overpair. You bet $40. They call. The turn is the queen of clubs. You bet $60. They call. The river is the 4 of spades. You check. The button bets $80. You call. The pot is now $433. Your opponent shows 2 8s for 3 of a kind. You lose a big pot. But every step was logical. You re-raised preflop against a wide range. You bet your overpair for value and protection. On the river, you checked and called, knowing the board did not favor many bluffs, but the pot odds made a call reasonable. The decisions were sound. The loss does not mean you made an error. Your ability to remain calm and not punish yourself for the result is the real win. Now take a step back and notice how these big pots actually come together. It is not one giant leap of risk. It is a sequence of ordinary actions: raise, call, bet, call, each one adding a little more to the total. By the time you reach the river, the pot is large because of all those small decisions stacking up. There is nothing inherently dangerous about any single street. The scale is just a natural outcome of the game's structure. Let's see this in practice. Again, $300 effective stacks. The hijack raises to $12. You are on the button with Queen of Clubs and Jack of Clubs. You call. The pot is $27. The flop comes Jack of Spades, 6 of Clubs, 3 of Diamonds. You have top pair. Your opponent bets $15. You call. The turn is the 9 of Spades. Your opponent checks. You bet $25. They call. The pot is now $107. The river is the 2 of hearts. Your opponent checks. You check back. You win with top pair. Every action here is steady and reasonable. The pot grows, but not because of any single reckless choice. You keep your focus on the hand and the board, not the dollar amount in the middle. The win feels good, but what matters most is your calm, process-driven approach. Take a breath. Let the size of the pot be just another detail, not a source of intimidation. Each decision stands on its own. Composure and focus are what carry you through, not the outcome of any one hand. This is how you build confidence for every moment, no matter how many chips are at stake. Chapter 6. Folding means you played badly. Deciding not to continue in a hand changes the decisions you face for the rest of the game. Once you let go, you are free from the pressure to commit more chips, and your focus returns to the choices ahead. There is a particular discomfort that comes right after folding. Many players feel a sense of wasted effort, as if the energy spent thinking about the hand no longer matters. Sometimes there is a fear of missing out, the nagging thought that the cards you let go might have become a winner. You might find yourself replaying the hand in your mind, wondering if you acted too quickly, or if your hand was actually too strong to fold. These reactions are common and have little to do with the quality of your play. Poker encourages these feelings. The game is built around the desire to win every hand, even when that is impossible. Most players cling to a quiet hope that their opponent is bluffing, especially with hands that seem too good to release. It is easy to fall into the trap of results, thinking you see a card that would have improved your hand and start to believe you made a mistake, even when your fold was the right choice. It helps to remember that folding is simply withdrawing your claim to the pot. It is not a defeat. It is not a sign of weakness or incompetence. Folding is part of the game's basic structure, a routine action that happens over and over for every player, even the best. The feelings of regret or curiosity that follow are emotional responses, not reflections of your skill or discipline. There is a clear difference between how you feel after folding and the intent behind the decision. Your emotions may protest, but your strategy remains sound if you folded for the right reasons. Consider a tournament hand with 40 big blinds effective. A tight player in early position raises to 2.5 big blinds. You are in middle position and look down at ace of clubs and jack of spades. You pause. The hand is tempting, but against a value-heavy range from this position, calling would often be a mistake. You fold. The pot moves on. No board is dealt. Your stack remains untouched. Still, you feel a surge of frustration and doubt. Was ace-jack too strong to release? Did you miss a chance? The answer is no. Your fold matched the situation and protected your chips. The real victory was your discipline, not the cards you might have seen. Choosing to fold is an act of control over your stack and your future decisions. You are not surrendering. You are making a conscious choice to avoid unnecessary risk and preserve your resources for better spots. Each fold is a decision to wait, to hold on to your chips until the odds are truly in your favor. There is skill in knowing when to let go of weak or marginal hands. This is a sign of discipline and shows that you are relying on probabilities and not on impulse or a need to chase every pot. By folding, you protect your stack from situations where your long-term results would suffer. Over time, this habit shields your bankroll from slow, steady losses that come from playing too many hands. Mental clarity is also part of control. Regular breaks and the ability to step away from the table help you avoid hasty decisions rooted in frustration or fatigue. Folding when you know it is right, even if it stings, is a way to care for both your chips and your state of mind. Imagine another tournament hand. You have 35 big blinds effective in the small blind. The cutoff, a wide and aggressive player, raises to 2.2 big blinds. You call with 8 of spades and 8 of diamonds. The flop comes queen of clubs, jack of spades, 4 of hearts. You check. The cutoff bets 3 big blinds. Your hand is now a medium pair on a board that is not favorable. You fold. The pot moves on. Your stack is preserved. After folding, you notice a sense of relief. You avoided a spot where further chips could have been lost, and you kept control of your tournament life. The main success was not in clinging to hope, but in protecting your resources and your focus. It is important to let go of attachment to individual hands once you have folded. Each hand is a separate event. Once you release it, you create space for a clean mental reset. If you hold on to regret or curiosity, that energy can bleed into your next decisions, clouding your judgment and making future mistakes more likely. Letting go is not always easy. The urge to know what would have happened if you stayed in can be strong. But practicing acceptance after a fold keeps you clear-headed and ready for what comes next. Picture a tournament with 30 big blinds effective. You sit in the big blind. The button, playing many hands, raises to 2.5 big blinds. You see King of Diamonds and 9 of Clubs. You fold without drama. No flop appears. The hand is finished. You do not wonder what might have been. You stay focused on the next opportunity, confident that your stack is safe and your mind is clear. Taking control of your emotional state, preserving your chips, and moving forward with calm after a fold are all signs of a strong player. The game continues, and you are ready for whatever comes next. Chapter 7. Winning sessions mean good decisions. A session that ends in the black immediately changes how you frame your decisions at the table. When you finish ahead, your memory of the session is colored by satisfaction and pride. It feels like proof that your instincts and choices were right all along. That natural rush of confidence is powerful, and it sticks around. It becomes easy to look back and see every call, raise, or fold as part of the reason you won. Sometimes, you might even replay key hands in your mind, feeling reassured that you made the right moves because the result was positive. This emotional feedback loop can quietly shape your future play. The pleasure of winning acts as a reward for your recent habits, whether they were solid or not. You start to trust your gut a little more. You may find yourself repeating the same decisions next time, hoping for the same outcome. It is very human to want to hold on to that feeling. The brain is built to seek validation and consistency, so it will focus on evidence that supports your initial read and ignore what does not fit. This is called confirmation bias. Confidence has real strategic value at the table. It changes how your opponents see you and can make your bets more credible. But there is a risk when that confidence is built only on short-term results. If your self-assurance comes from a single lucky run, it can turn into overconfidence. That is when you start to play more hands than you should, or push marginal situations, believing you have a special touch. The feeling is rewarding, but it can be misleading. Let us look at an example that brings this to life. In a cash game with $400 stacks, the player in middle position raises to $12. You are on the button and call with Queen of Clubs and Jack of Spades. The blinds fold. The flop comes 8 of Diamonds, 7 of Clubs, 2 of Spades. The original raiser bets $20, and you call with just Queen High. On the turn, a 4 of Hearts appears. Your hand is still only Queen High, but when the middle position bets $40, you call again. The river brings the Queen of Spades. Now you have top pair. Your opponent checks, and you bet $60. They fold, and you win the pot. It feels good to drag in a pot like this, after calling down and hitting the river. You might walk away thinking your reads were sharp, and your approach was solid. In reality, each call before the river was not supported by hand strength or pot odds. The win was lucky, not the result of sound play. This is how a positive outcome can trick you into repeating habits that will not hold up over time. If you let the emotional reward of winning reinforce every choice, you risk building your game on shaky ground. A session that ends in the red shifts your mental frame in a different way. Losing hurts. When you walk away from the table with less than you started, disappointment and frustration can take over. You may find yourself replaying every key hand, searching for mistakes and doubting your abilities. Even decisions that were well thought out begin to look suspicious. The sting of loss can make you question your process, even if it was correct in context. This is a common trap. When results go against you, it is easy to forget that poker is a game of incomplete information and chance. The mind wants answers, so it blames poor play or bad luck, depending on what feels safer. Your emotional centers take over, and the part of your brain that plans and reasons can get drowned out. You start to judge every choice by the outcome, forgetting that even perfect decisions sometimes lose. This is called results-oriented thinking. Here is a hand that shows how this can happen. In a tournament with 40 big blind stacks, the cutoff raises with a wide and aggressive range. You are in the big blind, with King of Diamonds and Queen of Diamonds, and call. The flop is Queen of Clubs, 7 of Spades, 3 of Spades. You check. The cutoff bets 2.5 big blinds, and you call with top pair and a strong kicker. The turn brings the 8 of Hearts. You check. The cutoff bets 6 big blinds, and you call again. The river is the Ace of Hearts. You check, and the cutoff bets 12 big blinds. You call, and your opponent shows Ace of Spades and 9 of Spades for top pair. You lose the pot. Despite the loss, each decision you made was sound. The pre-flop call was standard. On the flop and turn, you continued correctly with top pair and a strong kicker. The river brought an overcard, but the bet size and your opponent's range justified a call. The outcome was not in your favor, but the process was solid. If you let the loss change how you see your decisions, you risk abandoning good habits. It is important to recognize that negative feelings after a loss are natural, but they do not always reflect the true quality of your play. What really matters is focusing on the process, not the outcome. In poker, the only thing you can control is the quality of your decisions. The best players review hands and ask themselves not just what happened, but why they made each choice. They check if their reasoning was logical, if they considered the odds, and if they followed a strategy that holds up over time. This kind of reflection helps separate emotion from analysis. The more you practice it, the more you build confidence that does not depend on luck. Take a cash game with $300 stacks as an example. The player in the hijack raises to $10. You are in the cutoff with Ace of Spades and 10 of Spades and call. The flop is 7 of Spades, 4 of Spades, Queen of Diamonds. The hijack bets $15. You call with a nut flush draw. The turn is the 2 of Clubs. The hijack bets $35, and you call again with the same draw. The river is the 8 of Hearts. The hijack checks, and you check back. Your draw missed, and your opponent wins with a pair. You lost the hand, but every step was guided by logic and math. Your calls were backed by the odds and your position. You recognized there was no value in bluffing on the river. This is what it means to measure your play by process rather than result. When you calmly review hands this way, you build a deeper trust in your decisions. Over time, this quiet confidence carries you further than any single win or loss. Let yourself pause after each session, whether you are up or down. Notice how your feelings shift, and remember that true skill is measured by the quality of your choices. Each hand is a chance to practice this mindset. The game will always offer swings, but your process is yours to shape. Chapter 8. Position only matters. Preflop. When players focus only on the first deal, they often lose sight of how their seat continues to shape every decision that follows. Most casual players pay close attention to where they sit before the flop. They think about whether they are early, middle, or late to act, and use this to decide which hands to play. Once the community cards appear, though, they tend to forget about their seat. The action becomes about cards and bets, not about who has to act first or last. This misunderstanding leads to a loss of control as the hand progresses. When a player stops considering position, they miss out on the most consistent source of information at the table. Acting first means making choices without knowing what anyone else will do. Acting last means you can see the whole story unfold before you decide what comes next. If you ignore position after the flop, you give up the chance to use this advantage. Let's look at a hand that shows how this plays out. Both players start with deep stacks of $250 in a 1-3 cash game. The cutoff, an aggressive opponent, raises to $10. You are in the small blind and call with ace of hearts and jack of clubs. The big blind folds, leaving you out of position for the rest of the hand. The pot is now $23. On a flop of 5 of diamonds, 6 of spades, and 9 of clubs, you have high card only. You bet $15. The cutoff calls. The turn brings the 2 of diamonds. You still have high card, but you bet $30. The cutoff calls again. The river is the 4 of spades. You check. The cutoff bets $60, and you fold. The cutoff wins the pot. In this hand, the pre-flop call is reasonable, but from the flop onward, position is ignored. Every bet is made without the benefit of seeing what your opponent will do first. The cutoff, acting last, gathers information and controls the pace. With no made hand or draw, betting out puts you in a guessing game on every street. The stack depth allows for multiple mistakes, and your opponent's wide range is never challenged by information. The biggest error is forgetting that position keeps shaping the hand, not just before the flop, but all the way to the river. A quieter approach, checking and letting the cutoff reveal their intentions, would have given you more control. When you act last, each betting round gives you a chance to see how your opponents behave before you commit any chips. This flow of action is key. After the flop, if someone checks to you, you know they may be uncertain or weak. If they bet, you can judge their strength by the size and timing of their wager. This extra information is not available to the first player to act. Being last to act brings a sense of calm and clarity. You get to see the whole landscape before you step in. If you want to keep the pot small, you can check behind and take a free card. If you see weakness, you can bet for value or as a bluff. These choices are not open to someone who must act first, who has to decide in the dark. Consider a hand where this advantage is put to work. The stacks are $200 deep in a 1-3 cash game. An opponent in middle position raises to $12. You are on the button with 7 of spades and 7 of hearts, and call. The blinds fold, and the pot is $28. The flop comes 3 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, and 10 of spades. The pre-flop raiser checks, and you check behind with your medium pair. The turn is the 2 of spades. Now your opponent bets $15. You call, seeing that your hand is still likely best, and the pot is $58. The river brings the queen of clubs. Your opponent checks, and you check back. Your pair of sevens is good against their ace of clubs and jack of clubs. In this hand, you used position to control the action. By checking the flop, you kept the pot manageable and forced your opponent to reveal more about their hand. On the turn, you had the benefit of previous action to guide your call. The river checked through, and you won with a simple, informed decision. Each choice was made with more information than your opponent had. The influence of position does not always show up as a big confrontation. Sometimes it is felt as a gentle hand on the wheel, guiding the hand toward a quiet, favorable ending. Players in later positions can set the pace, choosing when to bet, check, or call. This lets them steer the action with little resistance, often getting the result they want without needing to force the issue. Imagine a tournament hand with 50 big blinds, effective. The hijack raises to 2.5 big blinds. You are on the button with the Queen of Spades and the 10 of Spades and call. The blinds fold. The flop comes 6 of Spades, 6 of Diamonds, and 9 of Clubs. The hijack checks, and you check behind with just over cards, keeping the pot small in position. The turn is the 2 of Spades, giving you a flush draw. The hijack bets 3 big blinds. You call, using your position to continue without committing too much. The river is the 8 of Spades, completing your flush. The hijack checks. From the button, you place a small value bet, aiming to be called by weaker hands. The hijack calls with the Ace of Diamonds and 5 of Diamonds. Your Queen high flush wins the pot. Throughout this hand, position allowed you to control both the size of the pot and the pace of the decisions. You did not need to bluff or apply pressure. You simply waited, observed, and took value when it was offered. The power of position is not always loud. It works quietly, building small advantages over time. Letting yourself notice these patterns brings a new level of enjoyment and confidence to your play. There is a steady satisfaction that comes from knowing your seat continues to matter, long after the first cards are dealt. Chapter 9. Luck evens out quickly. When you expect a string of unlucky results to be followed by a quick return to fairness, your decision process shifts away from logic and toward hope. In poker, it feels natural to believe that a run of bad luck should be corrected in the very next hand or session. This expectation is powerful because the game constantly mixes skill with hidden information. You know your decisions are sound, but when the cards fall the wrong way for several hands in a row, it feels personal. You start to look for signs that fairness is just around the corner. Bad luck in poker means that the randomness of the cards overrides even the best plays. This happens to everyone, no matter how skilled. You might fold a strong hand and see that you would have won. You might make the right call, only to be beaten by a single out on the river. The feeling that you are owed a win grows stronger with each disappointment. It is easy to believe that the universe must balance things soon. This belief is compelling because poker hides so much information. You cannot see your opponent's whole cards, and you do not know which unseen cards might improve your own hand. When outcomes do not match your expectations, you start to question your approach. Frustration builds, and you may feel tempted to chase losses or change your strategy in ways that do not fit the situation. The urge to force the game back into balance can lead to mistakes. Let us look at how this plays out in practice. Imagine you are at a cash table with $300 in front of you. You are on the button with Ace of Clubs and Queen of Clubs. The middle position player, who is playing a standard range, raises to $10. You call. The blinds fold. The flop comes 7 of Diamonds, 4 of Spades, and 2 of Clubs. Your hand is still just high card. The middle position player bets $15. You call, perhaps hoping for a shift in fortune, rather than because the numbers support it. The turn brings the 6 of Hearts. Your hand remains high card. Again, the middle position player bets, this time $30. You call, despite your hand strength not improving, and the pot odds not justifying it. The river is the 3 of spades. Once more, you have only high card. The middle position player bets $60. You call again, chasing the hope that luck will finally swing your way. The opponent shows a pair of 9s and takes the pot. In this hand, each call after the flop is shaped by impatience and a desire for fairness, not by logic. The frustration of recent results clouds your judgment. Folding earlier would have saved chips and composure, but the expectation of immediate balance leads to unnecessary losses. When you expect luck to correct itself quickly, you set yourself up for disappointment. The reality is that every hand stands alone. Past outcomes do not shape the next card or the next deal. Randomness does not keep a ledger. Sometimes, stretches of bad luck persist longer than you imagine possible, and that is simply part of poker's nature. The game does not owe you a win, no matter how overdue it feels. There is a different way to approach these swings. When you allow variance to exist without trying to predict or control it, your focus returns to what you can manage. Variance is not a sign of failure. It is a basic feature of the game that affects everyone, regardless of skill. You will encounter streaks of both good and bad luck, and neither predicts what comes next. Patience and composure become your best tools. When the cards do not fall your way, you can still make solid decisions and keep your routine steady. Let us see how this mindset changes your actions. You are in a cash game with $300, sitting in the small blind with King of Spades and Queen of Spades. The cutoff, an aggressive player with a wide range, raises to $10. You call. The big blind folds. The flop shows 5 of clubs, 5 of spades, and 2 of diamonds. You have 2 overcards and no draw. The cutoff bets $10. Instead of reaching for hope or chasing losses, you fold. There is no sense in forcing a result. With plenty of chips left, you wait for a more favorable spot. Here, folding is not a sign of giving up. It is a sign of steadiness. You let the hand go, accepting that variance will sometimes bring dry spells. You preserve your bankroll and your mindset, ready for the next opportunity. Over time, developing patience in poker is like building a muscle. Patience is not just waiting, it is the discipline to let go of outcomes you cannot control and to endure setbacks without emotional disruption. Experienced players feel the sting of losses just like anyone else, but they learn to respond with calm rather than panic. They avoid tilt, which is the urge to chase losses with reckless play. You can practice this skill by maintaining your routines, no matter how the cards fall. Pay attention to your decisions, not just the outcomes. Take breaks when needed. Focus on making the best play with the information you have, and let the rest unfold as it will. Consider a tournament hand, with 40 big blinds effective. You are in the big blind, with 9 of clubs and 9 of spades. The hijack raises to 2.5 big blinds. You call. The flop is King of Spades, 7 of clubs, and 4 of hearts. You have a medium pair. The hijack bets 2 big blinds, and you call. The turn is the 2 of spades. The hijack bets 4 big blinds. You fold, recognizing that your hand is unlikely to improve and the risks are not worth it. You stay focused on the quality of your decisions, not on any sense of being owed a better result. Building emotional endurance in poker is a quiet, ongoing process. It is not about shutting down your feelings. It is about learning to live with uncertainty, to let variance run its course, and to keep your mind clear for the next hand. When you slow down and accept the rhythms of the game, your patience becomes a real strength, carrying you through both the highs and the lows. Chapter 10. Aggression means risking everything. Betting and raising change the structure of every decision at the poker table by forcing opponents to react. These actions introduce pressure and create moments where chips are at risk, which can feel uncomfortable for many players. For some, betting and raising seem to invite disaster, while checking or calling feels like the safer path. This instinct comes from a natural desire to avoid loss and confrontation. When someone puts money in the pot with an aggressive action, it can feel like they are risking everything, even when the actual bet is modest. The heart rate rises, the mind races, and the fear of making a costly mistake takes center stage. Aggression in poker means betting or raising to push others off their hands, or to build a pot with a strong holding. It does not require reckless all-in moves or massive bluffs. Still, the emotional discomfort is real. Confronting another player with a raise means opening the door to resistance or escalation. It means inviting scrutiny, and sometimes it means being wrong. Caution feels safer because it delays conflict and preserves chips in the short term. Many players find themselves calling bets or checking through hands just to avoid the tension of betting themselves. Passive play, however, comes with its own risks. When a player only calls or checks, their intentions become easier to read. Patterns emerge, and experienced opponents can take control. They dictate the pace, set the price, and force the passive player to react instead of act. This loss of initiative often leads to smaller wins and larger losses over time. Imagine a game with $300 stacks. The cutoff, holding a wide and aggressive range, raises to $10. The button calls with Queen of Spades and Jack of Spades. The blinds fold. The pot is now $23. On the flop, 8 of clubs, 4 of diamonds, and 2 of spades appear. The button has overcards and no draw. The cutoff bets $15. The button calls. The turn brings the 6 of clubs. The action repeats. The cutoff bets $30. The button calls again with only overcards. The river is the 3 of hearts. The cutoff bets $60. The button folds, and the cutoff wins the pot uncontested. On each street, the button's caution allows the cutoff to maintain control. There is no attempt to apply pressure, no effort to change the story of the hand. Pot odds are not in the caller's favor, and stack depth would have supported a more assertive line. The result is a loss without ever contesting the pot's direction. In this case, caution becomes predictable, and the opportunity to seize control slips away. Using pressure in poker does not mean pushing every situation to the limit. It is about choosing moments for action with intention and restraint. Selective aggression is the practice of betting and raising when the situation calls for it, not just for the sake of being active. This style separates itself from reckless, impulsive betting by relying on a clear plan and understanding the situation. Restraint is just as important as action. Knowing when to check back or call, instead of betting, is a skill that grows with experience. Controlled aggression is available to every player, not just those at the highest stakes or with years of experience. The key is to recognize when a bet or raise can achieve a specific goal, such as forcing a fold from a weaker hand, or extracting value from a caller who will pay. Effective aggression comes from reading the table, noting opponent tendencies, and understanding which hands play well in which spots. Reckless bets, made without a plan, often lead to frustration and loss. Picture another cash game with $300 stacks. The cutoff opens to $10, with ace of spades and nine of spades. The action folds to the big blind, who calls. The pot is $23. The flop comes six of clubs, four of spades, and two of diamonds. The big blind checks. The cutoff, with an overcard and a backdoor flush draw, calmly bets $8. The big blind folds. The cutoff wins the pot immediately. Here, the pre-flop raise and the small continuation bet are acts of measured pressure. The goal is not to force a massive confrontation, but to win a small pot efficiently. The risk is low, but the pressure is real. By choosing the right moment and sizing, the cutoff claims the pot without resistance. Confidence at the poker table does not come from urgency or bravado. It comes from preparation and self-trust. When a player knows their ranges, understands position, and acts with intention, their decisions become less stressful. Acting decisively when the time is right, and accepting the result without frustration, is the mark of a calm competitor. The focus shifts from outcome to process, from fear of loss to trust in one's own judgment. Consider a final example. With $300 stacks, the hijack raises to $12. The button, holding 10 of spades and 10 of diamonds, calls. The blinds fold, and the pot is $29. The flop brings queen of spades, 8 of clubs, and 5 of hearts. The hijack bets $18. The button calls with a medium pair. The turn is the 3 of spades. The hijack bets $30. The button calls again. The river is the 2 of diamonds. The hijack bets $50. The button folds, recognizing the limits of their hand. The hijack wins. Throughout the hand, the button shows confidence in their process. They call when their pair may be good, but fold when the pressure and the board suggest otherwise. There is no frustration, only acceptance of the flow of the game. Measured aggression is not about constant confrontation. It is about knowing when to apply pressure and when to let go. Calm, thoughtful decisions build the foundation for lasting growth at the table. With each hand, the practice of intentional play creates new opportunities for success. As you sit back and watch the chips move, you can feel the difference between risking everything recklessly and risking with purpose. Take a breath, trust your preparation, and let the game unfold with clarity and poise.